That's right back, Charlie. That's right.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, bro. Come on.
There's always just that active red flag defending.
I've been given like
There's always just that active red flag defending.
I've been given like
Boom, introduction out the way. DG feet Bavardino. Obviously, I think we've got something on William Saliba and Gabriel. I can't lie, we took a road bump against Porto, but generally this year, broski, I'm sure you would agree, it's been a good time to be a Gooner. There's going to be many twists and turns, bumps and bruises, but for now, we're laughing, man. How you doing, my guy?
Listen, man, I'm doing very, very well. Obviously, appreciate being on the channel. And listen, man, that new intro looks cold. So, listen, you're doing the thing, bro. Listen,
trying,
obviously, Arsenal doing it as well. You know, massive win, obviously, on Saturday. And listen, man, I'm still recovering because I went straight out after the game. And I was like, gone out of my head. So, obviously, people are asking me about thoughts on Arsenal. And I'm like, listen, I'm where I am right now. Way too many tequilas. But, you know, it is what it is. We're celebrating, we're surviving. And I'm not hungover anymore, so I'm good.
Hey, man, it's all good, man. Just make sure, you know, you're saving that, man. You might need to get back on the alcohol depending on how May goes. Obviously, big up you for you know, the praise on the intro. We spoke off camera. Obviously, you know what I'm trying to do and whatnot. So, yeah, big up yourself for the kind words. Obviously, giving up your time and actually your time off camera, man. But before we get into Saturday and all the things I've got to ask you with, yeah, I know I don't want to be putting a dampener on things. Smash the like button and subscribe to me as well as Babs, by the way, folks. We have to go over Porto. I've never spoken with you. Well, I have spoken with you about the Champions League, but I haven't spoken with you with the Porto game. Where's your thoughts in the Porto game? What do you think went right, went wrong? Where are you at with our Champions League chances? And do you like, where do you put it? Because a lot of people are saying we played for a draw, we weren't confident, we don't have a plan B, we're inexperienced, etc., man. What's your Porto thoughts?
Look, the game itself was very annoying because you go and beat, obviously, West Ham was at 6-0 and 5-0 against Burnley, so you're going with confidence and you're going first Champions League knockout stage game in many years. Porto is a beatable team with all due respect, but I kind of knew it would be difficult. And I felt like it was one of those games where the performance was definitely down to the expectation the Arsenal fans had and the players had on themselves, and I think they kind of... Look, Porto are a good team, but I think we overstated it. We gave them a little bit too much respect. And I didn't really see it as a big problem itself in terms of our grand scheme of the season. I saw it as an individual poor performance, almost going back to that game against Fulham, where, you know, against Liverpool we were right, West Ham were right, Fulham was a poor performance. I put it down to little and off king. And also I realised that, look, the narrative was based around the result, which always is, and conceding a last-minute long shot, which what it was a last-minute long shot, you know, it definitely skewed the narrative massively around the fan base. So I wasn't that stressed going into the future. I actually put out a tweet saying that, you know, bring them to the Emirates, we'll beat them there. And I got a lot of stick. I had people saying, humble yourself. And I'm like, listen, man. And then obviously when you see Arsenal then go to the Emirates against Newcastle and smash 4 past them in the first 60, 70 minutes, that's why I believe in the team so much. That's why I'm not stressed as much if we lose again. Because I'm like, the team will bounce back. It ain't one of those types of teams where, you know, it will lose, and the heads will go down and the characters will go. I think these characters kind of built off those past defeats and they get stronger and stronger. And you can see it with our defence, man. I saw some stat that our XG against the last 6-7 games is like 1 or 2, and the next highest is City, who've got like 4 or 5 or 6. It's insane. So look, right now I'm very upbeat, and that Porto game was definitely a kick in the teeth, as you said, but I wasn't too stressed because I still believe the team's got it in their hands.
Do you think we showed them? I think you lightly touched on it. Do you think we showed Porto too much respect? And if we did, if that's what you feel, why do you think that is, or how was that translated on the football field, really, in terms of how we played?
I feel like it wasn't just Porto. I think it was the occasion of the last 16 Champions League knockout stage. I also went in there with, like, you know, no away goals. So it's not like if you score a goal, it used to count for almost 2. So it's almost like, let's go out there, let's get a result. We try to be too professional. And we haven't got the experience to be that just yet. We have to just go out there and do our thing. And I think we tried to play it too safe, hoping, you know, if we get a draw at the Emirates, we'll beat them. But the result is the same thing. You know, even if we wanted to go through, if it was a 0-0, we'd still have to beat Porto to go through. So we have to beat them again. And you know, hopefully we could do that. But I definitely feel like it was one of those games where the players maybe overthought it. And, you know, they didn't play to their strengths.
I'm with you with that, man. I always say the Champions League knockout stages, don't get it twisted. It is all about tactics. It's a football game. Tactics have never been probably more important than in the present day because it's all about systems and then the players' individualities versus, I want to say 10 years ago, probably even longer than that. I do think, I think we have a plan B or elements of that. I don't think we have a consistent plan B way of playing. I do think the occasion, I didn't really feel initially that the occasion got to us per se, but with listening to what you said and many people, I can't underplay that personally. I think we've shown we can go to hostile environments, get a result. I think, we kind of played into their hands. I don't think our play had that intensity. And with the greatest of respect to Kai Havertz and Kirill, they're two very good players. But if you're asking them in a tight and congested and condensed game to contribute in build-up play and stuff, they're very limited. And, you've got Kai Havertz making that third man run. You've got Kirill playing as a traditional fullback. Benjamin White's obviously inverting. That means Saka hasn't got someone overlapping. So Saka's dropping deep. I think we kind of played into their hands to a degree. As you said, I guess that's the beautiful thing about football. If it was a 0-0, we might still be saying these same kind of things, but it wasn't. And I feel had that Martinelli pass of worked, we might have scored. It would have been a very different narrative. But individual moments make the Premier League. I have my concerns generally about, elements you've touched on and how that will obviously play in the Champions League. But if we are to do it, put it this way, it's better that game didn't happen at the Emirates and we have to go to their place to do something versus what it's got. The Emirates we have gone away from home and shown we can do things, but the disappointing results for me anyways this season, losing against Lens, going out of the League Cup to West Ham. You said it there as well with Fulham. I would actually throw a bit of a different one, but I'd throw Newcastle, Aston Villa and Chelsea for different reasons into that. It feels like away from home, there's been positives, but we haven't always got the results. At the Emirates, Liverpool have been dealt with. Even in the FA Cup, we didn't win, but we've had two encouraging performances there. Smash Newcastle, which is seen as a top 6 game. We've definitely beaten City and there's probably a game I'm missing out. So I'm optimistic on the Emirates, but this is where, like, I've had you on my channel a couple of times. This is where I say, for me, the most encouraging thing is I think we can be our own best friends or worst enemies. And for one reason or another, we didn't create anything of note or do what needed to be done against Porto. The Chelsea and Spurs games early in the season, we shot ourselves in the foot. The Newcastle, Aston Villa and West Ham games, we were the better team, but we didn't get the results, which matters in this title race. So we're with all of that then with Porto, lastly on this year, where are you at with how we can go? Because some Arsenal fans, it was bring us Real Madrid. We're one of the favourites. We're this, we're that, we're the third. Maybe a lot of them thoughts are still the same. And now it's a bit, I don't know, kind of thing. So are you still optimistic on the Champions League? And like, where do you think we'll go? Do you think we're winning it? Do you think we're getting to the next round? Where do you think it starts and stops from?
I'm not quite sure about where we get to, because if we get to the final and it's at Wembley and it's a one-off game, I trust Arsenal to do something special.
Don't make me dream, bro. Don't make me dream.
But yeah, I'm not going to sell that dream just yet. I think, actually, going back to the Porto for just a second and that away game, and almost that was a very typical Champions League away day experience that we hadn't experienced for a long time, especially as this Arsenal team that have obviously not got Champions League experience. So now they've got that under their belts. You can take it in two ways. Either, oh my God, we need to improve ourselves. That's one thing. But secondly, okay, now we know what it feels like. We know what it feels like to have a 50-50 game. No team was a clear, better team, and it was, almost going towards the end and bang.
It was a group stage game in the Champs, in my opinion. It would have been a little draw or something.
It was dramatic at the end, and I think our players need to get used to the Champions League drama, because we've seen it with City. It was that game a few years ago against Madrid.
Wait, say that again, because I like that. Say that again.
Yeah. I think we need to we have to get used to the experience. But we saw it with City as well.
Trauma. I love that.
Yeah, it is. And the traumas that we saw with City where a couple of years ago, Real Madrid, I think they're 1 or 2 up second leg, and then bang, was it Vinicius or Rodrigo scored a couple goals.
Couple of the last games for when Madrid won it, you're right.
Yeah, so we're used to it. I've seen it from other teams, but the team hasn't experienced it itself, and so hopefully they can get use that to learn from it. If we do get passport, which I expect, then if we get a bigger team, going away from home, we know we have to switch off for full 94 minutes. You can't switch off for 1 minute, because in this competition, someone can bang it for 30 yards and it'll go in.
I mean, you said it there, and I just want to play devil's advocate. I agree with what you said, but purely playing devil's advocate, yeah. Obviously, Declan Rice ain't played in the Champs, but he's won the Conference League and he's been around the block. Jorginho's been there, Trossard's been there, Havertz has been there. Whether you've won this competition or whatever, some of you have played in, and I know Europa League, Champions League is not the same, but there's many transferable things. Based on that, being devil's advocate, because me and you have both said, right, inexperienced, you got to go through the Champions League trauma, you got to learn. If I'm devil's advocate and football is transferable, how far does that really go then?
I think it's one of those where the next time you're in a similar scenario, locked in game and it's 0-0, the players will be extra focused because they'll have the past trauma. And when you've got that, you know, we've seen it this year in terms of the Arsenal defence. We saw how last year we were a bit too open because we were trying to attack too much. So this year we almost were extra defensively to make sure we don't concede as much. So I think it's a bit of a safety thing. It will happen that in the future games, if we get past Porto, we're in the first leg and away from home, and in a similar scenario, the players will okay, right now, maybe don't play the risky pass, maybe just see out for now, and then past that we'll see it. Yeah, it's one of those where you learn from it. Exactly.
I think you're bang on the money, man. But I also have to ask you,
Yes.
We love Mikel Arteta, but is there a concern about him in the knockout stages of European football? Because at this moment, we've got it all to do against Porto. It's literally half time. Anything can happen. But you look at the Europa League exits, I personally feel against Sporting, I'm sure against Olympiacos and Villarreal, I've always felt that the narrative has been written in the last game, but the damage internally at Arsenal, when I've watched these games again, they've been in the first leg. So as much as we're optimistic and we're urging calmness, is that a worry of Mikel on your part or as an Arsenal fan part on Mikel Arteta's record in Europe?
I don't ever worry too much about Mikel Arteta because I think he will always set up the team, from what I've seen, to win. He'll give the players all the information they need, all the instructions they need, and then it comes down to the players and their individual performances. And I think we've seen it in the league in the past few games where they're trying to play Mikel's full philosophy of full domination, and you know we're smashing teams 5 and 4-0. I
think you're bang on, man. But
and then
only time will tell. Go on.
Yeah, but I think more importantly, I'm looking at it also in a sense of now that we've got that Champions League experience and we've got the thing, I almost do argue that I agree that Mikel probably is more suited to the Premier League than the Champions League because not that we have more experience there, but our style of play is more about domination, and the Champions League is less about that. You see year after year Atletico Madrid get to the final and they're not dominating games.
And the cultural differences as well, man.
Exactly. It's a survival thing. And part of it actually gives me confidence that we've tried it before. We've played that deep-lying football in some games and survived then. When you go down 10 men, we have that in our locker for sure. But I do argue that my concern is less Mikel Arteta and more individual players and difference makers. Because if you look at Man City, they had players that could, dominate for many years. You had
you said it earlier, Real Madrid.
Exactly. And they had Karim Benzema.
Carlo does that. You know what happens.
When you have a Karim Benzema, you have Erling Haaland, you know that these guys in these big games will provide a moment for you, whether they'll score or not. I'm scared that if we get that moment and it falls to Kai Havertz, who'll make himself the moment, he'll get into positioning, will he finish it? And sometimes he will.
He does because he finished it in the final and won a trophy. Listen,
exactly. So he's done it before. But you need that one player to stand out. Even when Chelsea won it in 2021, it was Mason Mount, who I think put a man of the match performance in the semi-final. So players can turn up and have that one season.
In the final, which is
exactly Kante in the final. We've got the other midfielder that obviously I think was the UEFA Men's Player of the Year that year, Jorginho as well. So we've got experience there. We've got some players that have that, and even Jesus' record in the Champions League is pretty good as well. So there's players there, but actually the confidence comes from me is defensively now, because now I'm looking at our defense, looking at Kivior and Ben White, and going, okay, there's no defensive weaknesses there anymore. Zinchenko is obviously not as good defensively. Now you got Kivior on that side. So when teams try to attack that side now, it's not like okay, we're gonna struggle on that side. So I'm still confident with Porto, and we'll see where we go past that.
And it's a weird one because, obviously, Lens, the way they set up was kind of defensive, but I don't think they were defending. I think for a large part, obviously, the Champions League's been a breath of fresh air. We've been blitzing teams. We were working all year as a minimum last year to be in it. I think the Porto game in the first leg was the first time it felt like it's different, but a Premier League match in that, maybe Porto are very more street smart, but 9 times out of 10, when we've stepped into the Champions League this year, teams are not doing what Premier League teams do, fouling us, low blocks, mid blocks, all of that jazz. They're kind of trying to play football with us or maybe be a bit naive, and we've blitzed teams. I think Porto was the first team that went, hold on, you know what? This hasn't been working for other people. Let's do something else. So I guess Arteta's going to have to find a way around that, man. And, again, I'm very pessimistic on winning the Prem or the Champs, but I'm very optimistic because all you've got in life is dreaming, in it, and we'd all like to see our team do it. In theory, and we're going to get onto the Prem, but with what we've got to play for in the Prem and where we're at now, everything that's on the Champs, if you had to bet your life savings and, in fact, your actual life on what one we're more likely to win or what one you're more confident to win, are you going with the Champs? Are you going with the Prem? And also, I'd say, which one would you rather win as well, bro? Because I'm going to say Champs. I can't lie to you. We ain't got that.
Look, obviously, I'd also hear the chances on, mainly because it's also Wembley. So just imagine your team wins it in London. We're from London.
Fam, if Saka wins Champs,
you just know. And also, I think if you win the Champions League, what happens is those players become instant superstars in the world. In the Premier League, you got the Premier League superstars, but when you win the Champions League, you can see with the likes of De Bruyne and Haaland, they get even more respect because you've got
You're
the
the best
Champions
team
League
in
under
the
your belt.
continent.
Exactly, and there's some great players that never won the Champions League. I mean, was it R9 never won the Champions League? Zlatan never won the Champions League. So these players have that on their shoulders. If you could win a Champions League, it would be massive, especially because it's in London. However, life savings are on it. Got to be sensible, innit? So I'm saying Premier League title. And that's still a mad thing for me to say because, you know, I actually honestly believe that we have a very good chance of winning this title. And I almost feel like the league's more in our control because we can go to City away and get a result. Whereas the Champions League, you could go and put a performance away at City or Madrid away, and then they have a Rodrigo, Vinicius pull out a moment out of nowhere. You're going, good performance, but the result wasn't in our favour.
You said it there, yeah. You mentioned on why we can get a result against City. Obviously, that's at the 31st of next month.
Yes.
Why do you believe, if I'm being devil's advocate, you know, with us got to play Brentford, Chelsea, and get all of these games out of the way, what gives you faith that we can go to the Etihad and get something? And when you say get something also, what do you specifically mean? Are you saying come out with a point we can maneuver, or is it the 3 points?
I'm confident we can get 3 or 1. And I'm saying that because of one word mainly. And it's not just one player, it's confidence. And confidence changes a lot of things in football. Where you look at our performances against Liverpool and West Ham in December, January, the chances were there. Confidence wasn't. Right now, these players have confidence.
You're right.
And those little things that you're thinking about in the game, those split decision moments, now they're thinking they're doing it instinctively. And I almost also feel like Mikel Arteta's philosophy that he wanted to play at the start of the season, the players weren't working out. Now they've worked out. Because everything feels automatic now when they're going forwards. They know where to be. And I'll give you the example as well. That Martinelli goal, the Havertz goal against...
Bro, Martinelli on his bike immediately.
That cutback as well.
Even Kai Havertz's run.
Yeah, he's not seeing that cutback. He's not seeing Havertz. He's just put it in the area because they work on that all the time in training.
And the confidence of these players for Havertz to
exactly.
get there.
It's natural. It's natural.
Yeah.
And one of Mikel Arteta's first interviews at Arsenal was the fact that he wants to tell the players where everyone's going to be. Where everyone's going to be at what time. And it's just one of those where now once you know that and it clicks in your mind, it's all instinctive. And that's why if you look at every single metric, expected goals against and for and chance creation, whatever you want to look at, right? Even points in the last 10 games.
Everything is waving. Defensive stats, attacking stats, player individual stats.
I'm not naive enough to realise that one injury can change it, but also we've had injuries. Jesus is injured, Zinchenko's injured, Partey's injured.
August,
exactly. Are we getting on with it? No one's crying about
Arteta
Partey.
said we got to finish squad, bro. Like he said that. He said this is the period you need everyone fit, and
exactly.
we've got bare key players injured. As great as it's and as sexy as it's been dealing with these sides, I don't want to water down stuff, but you should be beating. Don't get twisted. You got to turn up against Eddie Howe, but their form's been well full. Burnley, easy 3 points, should be doing that. West Ham should be doing that, regardless of who's fit. And as much as I agree with what you're saying, again, being devil's advocate, you know, it's not like Arteta had a choice. You look at our bench, there's not really anything. I want to ask you something as well. Yeah, you kind of said it there, and I kind of know what you mean. But again, I'm a big fan of if someone don't know what you mean. You kind of said it's in our hands or it's in our control with the Premier League. Some would argue Liverpool have got the least defeats. City are obviously City. Where does that confidence in that statement from you come from?
The confidence comes from the completeness of our side. So we're not just defending well now, we're also making a lot of chances. And now we're making the most chances, by the way. The most. In the last, since I think, so even going back to the runs of defeats back in December, from that moment there, so even the tough moments, but even those moments there, the reason why I wasn't so stressed was because I realised the one issue Arsenal fans had the most at the start of the season, Arsenal, we just watching them, was no chance creation. And once that got fixed, I was like, okay, it's only a matter of time before these players start scoring from them. Because they're not really bad finishers. You know, Saka and Martinelli and Odegaard have always been good finishers statistically. So for me, the confidence comes from our attack now, actually making chances. Because we can always defend. And we've got the defensive structure and the players there as well, and the personnel. So if we can go forwards and make those chances consistently against top sides. And, you know, actually Porto is going to be a good test in a few weeks' time because they play a mid-block. And a lot of it isn't just a deep block and sit back. They're in your face, and you kind of have to be brave in their moments.
Oh, they've got 7-year-old Pepe as well, experience.
Exactly. But if we can break through that, like we did against Newcastle, who also often deploy a mid-block, then, you know, again, we can play against a deep block. We've seen it recently. We can play against, if teams come on to us, we're going to rip them apart anyways. It's just that final little step. And another team that does it pretty well is Sean Dyche's Everton as well. We've struggled against in the past. So it's clearly something that we've had issues in the past with. But if you play Jorginho, and you've got Rice there as well, who can hoover the second balls up. You've got Havertz causing issues up front as well. It's potential solutions.
I mean, I agree with you. I think the hardest thing in life to do is score goals. And I do think there is some logic with bringing in a striker, bringing in a winger. But as you were saying, in August, because I remember doing videos, it's like, yeah, we're scoring goals and there's every logic in saying we need to bring in a striker, etc., etc. But we weren't creating. Now it was, and then since then we've been creating. We just haven't necessarily put the ball in the back of the net. At this moment in time, we're scoring goals for fun. Goals are all over the squad. So I do think people underestimate the mental aspect of this. And my challenge to the players were, you know, even City, they've been there, done it, won it for years. In August, you saw it yourself. People saying, you know, City players were getting booed off the pitch. They were saying City's done. And my challenge for the players would be now, just keep your head in the right direction. You know, there's going to be bumps and bruises, twists and turns. Just keep your head, really. I don't know what we did in Dubai, but long may it continue. You touched on it, and I want to go back here. Obviously, for me, I think, you know, I would love to marry how we played this season with last year. You know, we're kind of doing the same things, but we're a lot better defensively this year. Obviously, was better in an attacking sense. I would love to marry them together. For you, what's been the changes?
I think the changes have been balance. And I think a main part has actually been Declan Rice over Thomas Partey, because I know Partey's injured right now, but I actually think his role in keeping that midfield more compact has helped out massively. And I also feel like the players that have, you know, been in Mikel Arteta's philosophy for the last 2-3 years now are getting it more and more. Saka, Odegaard, nowhere to be now. They know where to drop off. They know where to collect the ball. Exactly. So it's experience as well. I think these players, it's becoming more automatic to them, more natural to them to understand where to be. And even the players coming off the bench now, you know, you don't have to throw on a youngster anymore because you got Trossard coming off the bench. You got Nketiah not even coming off the bench at times. Smith Rowe's available right now as well. Exactly. So there's a lot of players that we can turn to and different types of systems. And I like the system in our last game when you got Havertz up front causing issues. I saw some crazy stats. I spoke about my channel actually, where I think in every game he's played up front, this year, he's had like a nearly over 1 expected goals and assists. And that's literally Erling Haaland numbers. So he's making so many chances for Arsenal and opportunities that, listen, I'm excited.
Where are you at with Havertz then? Because he's still an enigma, bro. Like, he's a massive enigma for me, and that I think any other players, I wouldn't cut these luxuries, but we're at. I think this is why Mikel Arteta is the manager, and we're here talking on YouTube. He bought Havertz. Whether he's a success or not is a completely different thing, right? But I think he needs to play in that left 8, but I don't feel that's his strengths because he's not really interested in build-up play. I think he does things. I think his best strengths, and it's dumb because you're a footballer, would actually be using your right foot because your last 2 finishes have been with your right peg, so stop using your left. But his movement, his pressing, his willingness to get around, you know, his manipulation of space, he's very intelligent in that regards. And, you know, I would say obviously he's had good games playing in midfield to a degree, but his more standout moments, like if his Arsenal career ended at this moment in time, his more standout moments have been when we've gone more direct. He's playing up front. We saw it against Luton, Brentford, Chelsea, and we saw it against Newcastle. Where are you at with Kai Havertz now? Like, is he a striker for you? Do you think he's a better striking option than Gabriel Jesus, for example?
Yeah. Listen, right now for Arsenal, big games, I think so. And it's a crazy statement because Jesus is a very good player in big games, but I'm talking about that threat that you can't deal with. And we're talking about players he's played against. He ain't playing up against players that are mid-table players or lower half with all the respect. Van Dijk, Konate, issues. Stones, Diaz, issues. Multiple times, by the way. You know, multiple games. Both. He played City twice, and I think with Havertz up front, and likewise Liverpool. And he's caused them both issues. And those centre-backs are as some of the best in the league. I mean, Konate got sent off. He got sent off because of Kai Havertz.
Is that the guy they compared to Saliba? I don't know him.
Exactly. I don't know about that. But when I see that and I see a consistent goal for it, when he plays up front, Arsenal make more chances. And now if he can start scoring more goals, I think the goal against Newcastle was his first goal as a striker. Actually, him starting and scoring as a striker. If he can get more confidence, scoring even a few more chances, because when he plays up front, he's guaranteed at least 3 big chances per game. I can't say that about most strikers in the league. And I think a lot of people judge strikers of big chances they miss. But if you look at the player that misses the most big chances, it's Erling Haaland.
It's Haaland.
That's what the best strikers do.
And them, man, and Salah.
Yeah, the best strikers, it's more about how can you get into positions? How can you evade your markers and stuff? Exactly. And if you get enough chances, you're going to score enough goals. And Havertz is on 6 right now. If you can get at least 10 by the end of the season, I think that's success.
What does he have that Gabriel Jesus doesn't then?
I think it's the way he occupies centre-backs. And it's more just as down to the natural size he's got. Because he can contest the ball, and because he's 6'4", the defender's so wary of, okay, if this guy jumps before me, he's going to win the ball regardless, that there's conscious more often. Jesus is more of a player he can hustle you, can bustle you, but he's not got that physical gift Havertz has. And also he's fast as well. I think we saw it in the last game where there was almost a loose ball, he just chased it down. Exactly.
Because of his running style, and he's tall, he don't look the quickest.
It's Haaland-like, isn't it? In the sense of he's got the power, he's got the pace. He's not quite the finisher of Haaland, but he's got that in him. And also, it's just a smart mover. He knows how to drift into the right spaces, and he will generate Arsenal opportunities. And I think that's what a main part of Arsenal's team right now is, with generating opportunities. And Havertz playing as a striker more than a midfielder is working out. But even when he plays in midfield at times, he's drifting to the striker area. I think he's starting to understand what he wants, or Mikel Arteta wants from him.
And looking a lot more confident.
Exactly. And you're then seeing him doing it more naturally. So I think for me, if you were to ask me, we've got Man City tomorrow at the Etihad away. Jesus is available, and likewise is Havertz. I'm starting Havertz up front.
So out of all the strikers, respectfully to Eddie, but let's be respectful. Eddie and Nketiah,
Yes.
Trossard, Havertz, Jesus. Forget the teams and all of that. Who's the first choice striker in your immediate thinking for quote unquote the foreseeable future? Then
It changes per game. That's the beauty we have, is with some games you will have Jesus.
he's answering like Mikel Arteta, Fox,
But
mate.
it does. But isn't it a good thing to have that you've got different types of strikers?
You need variety in life. You need
exactly,
variety in life.
exactly. Sometimes in games where you need two strikers, you can play Havertz as a midfielder because he can play as a second striker at times as well. So teams are almost like,
midfield anyways.
midfielder,
In fact,
a
that's
striker.
one thing
There you
all
go.
of them got anyways.
There you go. It's fluidity. So I want, just like the Arsenal teams become fluid, I want the selections to be as well, where players are not comfortable within the first team, apart from your guaranteed starters. The rest of the players aren't comfortable. So Jesus now knows, if I get into the team now, and if I don't score, there's a guy behind me who can play a good start as well straight away. And that's what you want: competition, competitive environment. But yeah, if we're talking about Man City away, I'm starting Havertz. If we're talking about Bournemouth at home, I'm starting Jesus.
And I think it's a weird one because like Havertz is weird because it's like when he doesn't have time to think. Obviously, finishing is never going to be a strong point of his. I guess it's something you can improve. I would love to see him turn into a goal scorer. I just think strikers are born. If you're not prolific now, I don't think I'm not to say you're not going to have good or bad seasons, but I don't think that's ever going to be a strength of yours. I think, you look at the goal he should have got in the second one against Newcastle. I think that sums up Havertz. When he ain't, obviously it was a more difficult finish per se for the second one, but when he's got time to think, a bit like Gabriel Jesus, when he's got time to think, it's not happening. So do you still think we need a bit of a twofold question with what you said about Havertz and Jesus, and we know Trossard's been there and there's variety in there? Do you still think we need another striker? And also in relation to Kai Havertz, do you think he's convinced Arsenal fans? Do you think his signing has been backed up? Do you think he's a success now?
I think in terms of the first question, and also needing a striker, the answer is yes, because Havertz isn't an out-and-out striker. I don't think his role is that to be either. As you said, I think he's better instinctively, and that means that it's just almost first touches, first timing, little knowing when to arrive into the box. That's for me the perfect almost number 10, second striker, where it's all instincts. When to arrive into the box, when can I receive the ball? It's all one-touch football. Whereas as a midfielder, you need to think too much, and he's not got that same level of football thinking mind like Xhaka used to have. So in terms of striker, 100%, because I think a natural striker would give us more often, almost like Havertz, just can finish, basically. But in terms of Havertz, the player himself, I don't know if fans will know if he's a success or not unless we win a title. I think that's a lot of fans will judge it off. If we win a title and Havertz has played a part, it is harsh, but that's football. Fans want results. They want that narrative to come through. Havertz has scored these important goals. If we win the league title and it's by 3 points, you can then go and say that goal that Havertz scored against Brentford helped us win the title. Yeah, I won it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But those, they play a part. But if you don't win the title, Havertz will be the biggest scapegoat you'll get. I guarantee it. People will be saying, why'd you sign him? Should have signed Maddison instead. But I'm starting to get the signing more and more, because I'm starting to see the fact that he can play in so many areas. You sign him for £65 million. It's a lot of money, by the way, but you're getting a midfielder who can play midfield at times. You're getting a player who can play up front at times. That's two areas you've now backed up in squad depth.
Forcing it, but you could say out wide on occasion.
Out wide as well on occasions, but also that flexibility and that difference as well, profile. We don't have a tall striker. Now we've got one. So he's added quite a lot to the squad in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality is what fans are judging him off. And I think that will come towards the end of the season. If he scores some important goals, and if you go off what Chelsea fans say, that in March, Havertz turns up massively and scores quite a few goals. We've got some massive games in March.
You see the fixtures.
Yeah. We've got some massive games in March, including Man City. And if he can score a few massive goals there, then I think fans will be fine with it.
And I mean, I think one good thing is like it's not that nobody cares, but nobody is talking about the 65 million. And if nobody's talking about it, you're doing a good job, really and truly, if I'm honest with you. Yeah. I think this question's interesting. Big up Christian, man. He said, big up DG and Bavs. One love, my guy. Considering how solid we look with Jorginho in midfield, why can't Arteta keep that partnership with Rice? Jorginho in the midfield frees up Rice a bit and gives Odegaard freedom. I'm going to let you answer before I offer my 2 pence.
I think the thing is respect. Some teams respect us massively now, and therefore we have to commit more men going forwards. Hence why you have the extra striker playing in midfield and Havertz. So in those type of games, you need to just almost overload the box. You have to play an extra attacker. Whereas in games like Newcastle, where they're a bit more aggressive because they've got better players going forwards, you're going to have more space, and then it's about being clever, manoeuvring and manipulating the block. bringing them out, forcing them out, playing little passes that are a bit more smarter. So it all depends on the game states. So against a Man City, Mikel Arteta has a big game template where you got Jorginho, Rice, and Odegaard. But against teams that aren't going to play like a big team, you got to respect them and you got to go for it as well against low blocks. Because if you've got a low block and you've got Rice, who would you rather have, Rice as an 8 or Havertz as an 8? A natural attacker versus a natural midfielder?
Rice, because you saw it against Newcastle, bro. He can nick it further up the field.
He can nick it.
Yeah, it's going to go over it's going to go over things. But go on.
Like, listen, I think he can be a very good number 8, but I think naturally Havertz is more of an attacker. So in those type of games, if there's a ball that falls in the box, Havertz is more likely to be on the end of it than Rice is, for example. But in those type of games against Newcastle, where there's a bit more space and you want to just hoover the balls up there, Rice is perfect because he will just bounce off him. And he is good going forwards as well. So it's a close debate. But I think the reason why Mikel Arteta turns to the likes of Havertz goes against deep blocks, teams just sit back the whole game. And I think if we got Everton coming up soon or someone like that, even Porto second leg, you'll see it. Teams will sit back, and so then it depends on how you can break it down.
I think Havertz got to go up front in a game like that. Maybe I'm suffering from recency bias. I mean, if Jesus is fit, who knows?
Yeah, but I reckon the only reason why he doesn't start Jorginho and Rice in both games, or most games, is because sometimes you need to commit an extra man going forwards.
I think you're bang on the money, and I think the most important thing you said there is, is basically different horses for different courses. You have a squad. Me and you have spoken at depth. I still think we need to address that left-sided 8. I would like another number 6 in terms of depth. I would like to see Jorginho, Rice, and Odegaard in midfield, just because I feel obviously no 2 games are the same, and I was crying for Jorginho to come off the bench against Porto. When he came off, fair play to him, he was rubbish. I think when it's like the bigger games and it's more of a chess match and it's more of an Arteta versus Eddie Howe or Pep or Klopp, it's more about the managers going against each other, then I think, Jorginho, that's you. I think when the games are open, like Chelsea away, to a degree when he made the mistake against Spurs, I think they're the issues where Jorginho is faced. And I feel when you listen to Mikel Arteta's press conferences and things, Jorginho is another one, if I had to put a mark next to his name, that he picks up knocks. Arteta always says he's been carrying a knock. He's been out for 1 or 2 weeks. Again, his recovery as well isn't necessarily the best as he gets older. But it would be something I would like to see, because I think there's no coincidence. You've got Kai Havertz being a free spirit, doing a little bit of dropping deep, running in behind, pressing, doing all of that. That's his strength. You've got Jorginho, who wants to play football and conduct. Rice is a bit more freer, and that's why I think you saw Martinelli had his form's a bit techie, but he had a more encouraging performance. Kirill did very well in an attacking sense, didn't have much defending to do. But I think a bit of that is because Rice is out there. I think our left-hand side has struggled. I think in the first half, that was the first time, I couldn't tell you the last time that I watched Arsenal and I thought, we actually looked before the first goal went in that we might get one from the left-hand side versus the right. If we could, in the summer, I'd love to find a younger Jorginho, but it's a bit of a myth. Another question, man. Big up yourself. Do you think people give Benny Blanco the respect he deserves? I don't think so, because I think at the start of the season, Gabriel was slept on. Now Gabriel's got a chant, and I made a video on this, folks. It's happened, but he's got a chant. Now people are giving him the same level of flowers to Saliba as well, and now everyone can see how they complement each other. I don't think Benjamin White gets his flowers. I definitely don't think where Southgate's concerned. I think people don't give him his credit because he's not going to score or do mad things. I just think the man's our most underrated player at the moment, man. Where are you at with Benny?
I agree. But I think there's a reason why fans don't give him flowers, because he does the sly things that no one notices. And that's his job. It's not to be the standout player.
We waffle about set pieces. He's key to it.
Yeah, and his role is, again, just to stand in front of the goalkeeper. No one will notice.
He's a shithouse.
Exactly. And he's one of those players that he's meant to go under the radar, because his role is to stay secretive, not to be the standout player who's firing the Hollywood passes. So I can see why fans wouldn't. If you're talking about a game, you can see Saliba's standout action, that tackle he made, or the lovely tackle from Rice, or the goal from Saka. But what does White do?
He did not make Doku, though, man.
Exactly. But it's the little fine moments that fans will forget about. So I get why, maybe he doesn't get flowers, but he deserves it for sure.
You're right, man. He definitely deserves it. It's a bit of my question for you then, like, where do you rate him? Like, obviously, he can play centre back, but last 2 years he's been a right back. It's fair to judge him on that. Where do you rank him in the Premier League? Like, because for me, I'd say he's more all-rounded as a defender than Trent. But for what Trent does, Trent's better than him. Reece James can't stay fit. I would say Reece James is better than him, and I would say Kyle Walker's better than him. Other than that, I think it's very debatable. Where do you put Benjamin White?
Yeah, he's in the top 5 for sure. And I think in terms of top 3, in terms of consistency, he's a very consistent player when he's given time to rest as well. And I think sometimes we've seen him drop off this year, where he's been playing constantly non-stop.
Ran into the ground, yeah.
Exactly. And I think that week in Dubai is no surprise that since he's had that break, he's come back stronger and better. And I think in terms of just fluidity, he can play midfield now. He can play as a right back, he can play defensively as a centre back at times as well. that level of versatility is so important. If there is an injury to happen now, if you've got a right back available, you can play right back there and play Ben White centre back as well. So I think he's up there for sure. And in terms of most underrated players in the league, he's in the top 3.
100%, man. Like, who would you say away from Benjamin White is the number 1 underrated player at the club then? Because I was trying to find this. It might even become Martinelli with his form, but who would you say is the most underrated then?
I think underrated. It's weird because I could say Jorginho, because for what we signed him for, fans were talking about, oh, why did you sign Jorginho? And there was people saying, get him out of the club from day one. £12 million. He's been consistent, reliable, never let us down. Exactly, and I think that's why he's underrated. But then you could say players that start week in, week out, like Ben White, even David Raya at times, what he offers a team, or Gabriel Magalhaes. But I think everyone's starting to get their flowers now, because when you're winning so many games, each game you win, you find someone else to praise. They're all getting spotlights, because you can't keep praising Saka every week. Sometimes it might be Kivior, sometimes it might be Ben White. So I reckon they're all getting their flowers. But if I was to say the most underrated player at the club, I would say Jorginho, honestly, because I think we hear it from Arteta as well, that his impact behind the scenes and how he helps the players stay up, and he's not even starting week in, week out. So that stuff goes under the radar, which I expect to. But I think his performances have been fine. And 2 matches this start of the season, or in 2024, 2 man of the match performances. So
you just wish he was younger, man. Like, that's the only thing I'd say with Jorginho. You just think he wish he was a bit more mobile and was about 25, but that can't happen. Yeah, I think this is an interest. Go on before I ask you the next one.
I don't think that whole mobile thing really gets exposed on the Arsenal side. I think it'd be amazing if he was mobile, but it don't really matter to the Arsenal team. I think his quality is that his confidence on the ball and bravery, because he's been in so many difficult moments as a player. He knows what parts he can play and what parts he can't play, and that timing is just experience.
Now, the reason I say that is because I think Mikel Arteta, again, like, it kind of indirectly is his use of Trossard, with how, for me, he's tried to invert Kirill and then just said, Kirill, you know what, you go back to basics. Havertz going up front, and what you said with him performing a bit better up front than obviously in the middle. I think it's about knowing your players' weaknesses on the pitch and also the right games for them. And I feel, there's a reason why, as much as I rate Jorginho, and as I said, he's had some injuries, why he hasn't always started and been an undisputed starter. I think if he had that mobility and athleticism that Rice has, for example, you're playing every week. It doesn't really matter. I think, as I said earlier, when the games are kind of open, that's not you. Jorginho is almost, I wouldn't say our hidden weapon, because everyone can see it now, but almost our hidden weapon where big games are concerned. So long may it continue. Obviously, keeping up the theme with midfielders, big up yourself, Classified, for asking this. When or if Partey comes back, where does Arteta play him? Because he was playing right back at the start of the season. I don't know when he comes back. So for me, let's see him get back and then have a conversation about Partey. I would like to see him next to Rice, but when is he going to be fit? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is there's a reason why I say obvious answer. It's because that's what he will play. I think sometimes you might play a right back, and let's just say if we have to go for the same thing as last year, touch wood off, but Saliba gets injured. Then you can play Ben White as a centre back and Partey right back. So, that's something he can do as well. But I think if he's going to play for Arsenal, first he'll be on the bench because he's not reliable to stay fit. And once he breaks back into the first team, once he breaks back into the first team, which I think he will eventually, then of course I think as a number 6.
That's a good use. I mean, there's nothing more I can add on what Babs is saying there. We all know Thomas Partey's quality, but when you're never fit, as much as the manager rates you, and he always talks about Partey being a key player, Arteta does, and all of these things, you force your manager to move away from you. If you're not fit, you're not relevant, and the excuses kind of go to a certain point. This question is said, let's say Jesus is to be deployed on the wings. Which side would you prefer, right or left? I remember the City game, Jesus covered so well for Saka. At the same time, I feel we can have more output on the left. I would say on the left for me personally, because he pulls out there a bit. I'll prefer him on the left. Where are you at?
The answer is both, because he's equally good on both sides. And that's the best thing, is because at times on the right wing, you see with that game against Man City, even I think when he used to play for Man City, he's had some really stand-up games as a right winger. There was a game actually a few years ago.
Seen him play left back as well, blood.
Yeah, there was a game that was, I think, the Bernabeu as well. There was a game he played against Watford. I think he scored 4 goals or 5 goals, something like that, as a right winger. So
Jesus scored 4 or 5 goals in one game.
Yeah, in one game. You know what I mean? So I think the answer is both. I think he's got both. Yeah, I think he's only got 4 anyways. But look, maybe put him right wing a bit more often.
I think you're bang on the money with that, man. Obviously, Martinelli, where are you at with Martinelli's form? For me, I'm biased. I love Martinelli. Form is temporary, class is permanent. I feel the last 2 games in the Premier League have been a bit poor. Didn't do nothing like everyone. But I think against Burnley, it was a step in the right direction. I think against Newcastle, it was definitely a step in the right direction, was fairly positive. But, I do feel a bit sorry for him in that, the last couple of games in the Prem, we've been smashing them in, and he hasn't got one in it really and truly per se. So where are you at with Martinelli, and do you think he should be dropped for Trossard?
No, I don't think he should. But I will say, if you actually watch Mikel Arteta's, was it bench cam, he was very frustrated with Martinelli. So yeah, I think that's the reason why people always think, why did he come up first? And I think that there's little things that we don't see as fans that he's not doing that Mikel Arteta wants. That's why he gets what comes off in the 60th minute all the time. But in terms of the performance against Newcastle, I think I was very impressed by it, but also not surprised because the one time in a while that he had a passer and Rice next to him, he started thriving and we had more balance. So that says to me that if you want to get the best out of Martinelli, you need to have that player next to him. If that's Declan Rice, then amazing. But if we sign someone in the summer instead, again, you'll get the better out of him. But I think right now our team is more lopsided on the right-hand side because our most consistent player is Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side. It makes sense for that. But I wouldn't drop him for anything because I think his pace is just something that we don't have.
It's a weird one because my bias is always to start Martinelli. But if it was just on form, I know Trossard's had a couple of games where he ain't really done much. But if it was just in terms of form being fair, I think Trossard has to play on the left with Saka and on current form, Kai Havertz. I'm not dropping Martinelli. I think it's a bit... I always say this with Trossard. It's them ones where you wish that it wasn't 11 aside, it was 12 aside, so he wouldn't have this issue. Where you at with Zubimendi? Is he the guy in your opinion? I'm having him.
Listen, I think he's up there as one of the guys, but I don't know if he's... We're getting to the stage now that our team is so good that whoever you sign needs to be a very, very good player. He has to be a banker. Declan Rice was a banker. Could I say Zubimendi's a banker into the first team? I'm not quite sure. Is he going to be more like a Kivior, Fabio Vieira type signing where he grows into the first team? Or is he going to be that Declan Rice starter straight away? And I don't know. So for me, if we're going to sign someone, I can only go with players that I've seen play consistently. Frankie de Jong, for example. I know that if we sign him, there's a top player there because I've seen him play more often. Zubimendi, he's playing in a system right now where they're not as dominant as Arsenal. So we don't know how he's going to thrive. He could come into a possession side like Arsenal that dominate games and thrive straight away. Or he could struggle and take time to adapt. So I'm not convinced he's the guy, but he might be.
You'd have to give any player like really and truly to you know, especially if they're leaving Spain for England to adapt. So I hear that. If everyone's fit in our team, what's your starting 11? Me, obviously, sorry Ramsdale, but I'm going to go with Raya, Saliba, Gabriel. Everyone's got that. Benjamin White, right back. Left back's a bit technical because it does depend on the game state. Because for all of Zinchenko's issues defensively, I think he gives us a lot. I'm a big fan of the stability Tomiyasu gives, and he's even improved there. And I know he's only played 50 official minutes in the Premier League, but I'd go with Timber. Assuming, once again, everybody's fit, I would say Declan Rice, Partey, and Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and I big up Havertz and Trossard and all these guys. But my Brazilian, Gabriel Jesus, you're up there, man. Where are you at with this if everybody's fit?
Yeah, I agree with most of that team for sure. I think it changes because if that was Man City, I'm starting Havertz up front. I'm sorry. I think he has to start against like a Man City or Liverpool because he causes those centre-backs so much issues. But in terms of midfield, I think you're spot on. I think that midfield is so good. And defensively, the left-back role, I will say with Kivior, I know he's just broken to the first team now, but if he can continue growing in confidence, he's got all the fundamentals.
Main thing, confidence.
Yeah, exactly. It's the main thing, confidence. And also, I think, not just confidence, but he's got that technical ability. And we saw it in that, MLS tournament pre-season, where he was just firing the balls at targets and stuff. So...
Havertz looked terrible in that, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But you know when you just see... Yeah, you just see it now.
Oh, he's having a great chat. Don't worry, folks, man. Babs be back in a sec, man. Yo.
Oh, bro, I'm still.
You're back. They don't want us to fry, but you're back, man. Carry on with what you're saying. Yeah, go on. Do your thing. Technical difficulties, folks. Don't watch that, man. Don't watch that. Shall I take you out and then come back in, or?
No, I'm back.
Yeah, go on. I think we was all getting scared. We had a great chat there.
It keeps turning off, bro. They don't want me to talk about Arsenal, you know? They want to see us win. But
literally.
I definitely feel like that first team that you named there, if that is the first team, then look at the players you got off the bench. And the quality is there.
This is the thing. And then you just marry it with, you know, a striker, a winger, centre mid, anything else Mikel Arteta demands were great. Big up South London's finest, because this question kind of ties into what we're talking about at the moment. He said, question, guys, with how Kyrgios was playing in this team with White inverting on the other side, do you think that's the plan we had with Timber and is Martinelli affected by the change to the left-hand side? I think with the volatility on the left-hand side, naturally, everyone's been affected. There hasn't really been that consistency. Timber's been out. Tomiyasu's been here and there. Zinchenko's been here and there. Kai Havertz is in the hole one time and then he's out. And we've seen Fabio start there and we've seen a bit of other changes. So obviously Martinelli has to address his poor form or whatever off his own back. But I do think that stability hasn't been there. And we do need change in dynamics, you know. As much as I like Benjamin White, I'm not saying he'd be dropped. But if there was was Tomiyasu and Timber, where they're both comfortable on the left or the right. We don't know what Arteta could do. Variety is the spice of life. So I'm welcome to seeing other things, because ultimately it keeps players guessing, because you don't know if you're going to start, and it keeps the other teams guessing because you don't know what Arteta is going to do, the mad scientist. But where are you at with that?
Yeah, I agree so, but you're right in the sense that Mikel wants to be very fluid. We saw it in the first game of the season. Gabriel's not starting. You know, who knew that saw that coming? So I think a massive part of what Mikel wants eventually is to just have these players so comfortable, the squad so comfortable with each other, that you can play anyone anywhere and they'll be comfortable. And Martinelli could have a Kivior behind them, or Tomiyasu or Timber, but he will know it'll be the same dynamics and they all can play the same way. And I think also sometimes we're seeing Mikel now adapt around the players that are available. So when Kivior's available, he's not inverting as much anymore. He's playing as a left back. But I'm sure if Timber was available, Zinchenko's available, he'll go back to normal. So I think the manager's learning how to adapt on his players, and I think that's more important than anything.
Exactly, man. Because again, you know, one thing I've always said, I do admire Mikel Arteta's positive arrogance and stubbornness to stick to what you want to do as a manager. But obviously you need to do tweaks according to the game state, as Arteta says, and the personnel available, and also the knock-on effects. You know, Kirill inverting, is that going to harm Martinelli, etc., etc.? So you're right. What do you make of David Raya now? Because it's fair to say he looks very comfortable. He's growing in confidence. Big up Ramsdale, but nobody really cares about the Ramsdale Raya thing per se. Arsenal fans, the minute Raya makes a mistake, there'll be something. But yeah, where you at with him now?
Yeah, I think with Raya, a lot of the things that we talk about our defence and the fact that we've conceded such less XG.
I think your mic's gone slightly quiet, bro, you know.
My bad. But yeah, I think a major part to our defence, right, doing all right, is David Raya. I think people forget that at times. They talk about him making just saves, but in the last game against Newcastle, the amount of times he comes out of his line and sweeps perfectly fine. That type of stuff will go under the radar, but it's important because it will allow our team to play higher up the pitch and really push for it.
I think you're bang on the money, man. Where you at with Fabio Vieira, the forgotten man? I don't know where I'm at. I like him. I want to persist with him. I think you need to stay fit. I think you need to take your chances. I feel you've joined. I think I've said it before. Big up Neil for the question. I think Fabio Vieira joined Arsenal at the best and worst time. Best time because evidently we're doing a lot better. Worst time because you had Granit Xhaka playing week in, week out. You had Odegaard playing week in, week out. Now you've got Kai Havertz signed for 65 million. Yes, he's playing up front, but probably started more so in the middle. You're not taking Odegaard's spot. You do play on the right, but that's not you. And obviously you've got Saka. I wouldn't say it looks like £30 million wasted, but it's one of them. So where you at with Fabio Vieira? Because we ain't seen much of him.
I think out of all the players that are on the bench right now, in terms of first teamers, potentially he's got the most potential to break into the first team. Because on the left-hand side, to really maximise Martinelli, I'm looking for a player who can pass to it. And I think there's very few players in our squad as good at passing as Fabio Vieira. The only concern I have is off the ball, because that's a massive part of why Havertz starts this. Because off the ball, he's very good. He'll win the ball back. He'll win his duels. If Vieira can get to that stage, and you can, by the way, because we talk about, him being smaller than the rest. But look at Bernardo Silva. He's the same height, and he wins balls back.
Whatever he eats, go eat that, man.
Yeah. Exactly. So you can do it at that size. We saw it years ago with Santi Cazorla. It's not always about your size, it's how you use it. And I mean, Vieira, once he grows more into his body and he's more comfortable there, he's got the ability to do so. I think we saw it in parts of the season, but sometimes he went over the edge. And there was that game against, who was it he got sent off against? Was it Burnley, I think, or someone like that? Came off the bench and got sent off.
I'm getting flashbacks. He definitely got sent off.
Yeah. Exactly. And so sometimes I think he goes a bit over the top. But I think in terms of that passing quality, there was that pass against Everton this season where we scored a goal.
Well, which was great final ball, man. Good partnership with Martinelli of all people as well.
Exactly. So I think for me, he is the forgotten man right now, but I think he won't be come the end of the season if he stays fit.
It's like you said there, I would describe Fabio Vieira as stop-start because, it's a bit like when Eddie got his chance and had a little purple patch and things. It's very difficult on one hand, to show what you can do in 5-10 minutes. But I think every now and again with Fabio Vieira in the last 2 years, he's fit, he stays fit, which is underestimated. And as you said, he stays, you can't get injured. He starts to take his chances off the bench, having some impactful moments. He gets into a real good place mentally and physically. He got a start in the North London derby to aid this point. Obviously, didn't take his chance. But then you get injured again. So it's like you're charging up, then you're starting again. And it's just like it's just a never-ending cycle. And I must admit, I am getting to that stage as an Arsenal fan where we say Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu, Zinchenko, Jorginho, Fabio Vieira, and many, Reece Nelson even, a lot of these players, I'm never going to get out a player for getting injured. It happens. But we need to get to that scenario where people are like Saka, they're like Saliba, they're like Gabriel, they're like Declan Rice. There's an air of durability, which, to be fair, Martinelli as well. Now, a couple of them names I've said have had injuries. I'm not saying never get injured, but we need them to stay fit. What do you make of this? Martinelli's fluctuations in form a problem, given he can get us up the pitch quicker than everyone else. Do we need to invest in more pace in the summer? I mean, we'd all like pacey players. The next winger that comes in, I love Trossard, but I want them to be more of a traditional winger. They're not 1v1 demon, but they've got pace. And where you look at our failed pursuits of Rafinha, Mudryk, thank the Lord, and then Pedro Neto, Arteta's, it looks like he wants that anyways. Maybe Jesus moves over there and we've got that, but yeah. Where are you at?
Yeah, I agree. But I think the reason why people want pace is we want outlets, players that can run in behind. And that doesn't have to always be pure pace. You could have players that are strong enough to get in behind. And I think an example is Osimhen. He's fast, but he's powerful as well. And if we sign more outlets that can threaten him behind and make those runs, then amazing. But also, we have to realise that the better the Arsenal get, the space that is behind is going to get smaller and smaller. Yeah. Because teams will get more and more scared. They'll drop off deeper and deeper because they'll see that. And then they need players that are tricky and comfortable in tight spaces. That's why Pep's got less pace and more players like Grealish and Bernardo Silva, because those players are comfortable in under tight spaces.
And you're right, man. And, you know, obviously pace. Every pacey player doesn't have to rely on their pace to thrive. But naturally, if you're quick, but you can play like a Grealish or something like that, then naturally there's more game stakes to coin Mikel Arteta that you can play and thrive and operate in. Big up Richard, because you're always here. He's saying, seeing that this is the business end of the season, would you start both Saka and Saliba from the bench on Monday, play a backline of White, Kiri or Gabriel, Cedric? Me personally, fuck that. Pardon me, Richard. Pull them off if that's the case. We know that if we're to win this league against Liverpool and City, we need to take full points. They've had a week or so off by the time we play them and then take them off. While we should, even with a back line like that, we should be beating Sheffield United. But football's a funny old game. Let's just keep doing what we're doing and take it from there. But where are you at with that, Babs?
I 100% agree, because I think fans need to realise that those reliable players like Saka and Saliba, you compare it to Man City, Rodri and De Bruyne and players like that, they will start those games as well. They start in these parts of the season. They start every single game. Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup. They start every single game. So there is no resting at this point. And I think a lot of it comes down to these players also wanting to play, because they want to be a part of that team. They want to play and they want to make sure we get the wins. And they're so emotionally invested that sometimes that emotion alone will get them over the line.
Bang on the money, and that's the thing. Emotionally invested, and at the same time, as I said, we should be able to heavily rotate in theory and beat Sheffield United. But at the same time, you need to respect them. And honestly, if I'm Sheffield United, bro, I'm sitting there saying, Arsenal sport kids, we're fighting for our lives. We're not making this easy now. We should be smashing them. It should be 3-4. But let's just respect them, do the job. And then, you know, as Arteta has shown in the few recent games, one of the most happiest things is I've never seen Saka get subbed so much. I've never seen this. This is lit.
He's learning.
So
he's learning.
Just keep it going. What you say?
Yeah, 100%. He's learning. We're getting to the stage now where everything fans want from Mikel Arteta, he's offering them. Plays off the bench earlier, even a youngster against West Ham and Wanyeri. So we're getting there.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. What do you make of this? Reece Nelson has everything. Shows up in big games, pace, passion, and lots of heart. Why is he only seen as a squad player? I would say for me, you're not a bit. I know Nelson's decent and stuff, but I would say injuries. You haven't been able to stay fit. And quite simply, you're not a better winger or a better option than Trossard. You're not better than Saka. You're not better than Martinelli. You're not better than Jesus out there. So while it could be argued he could bag a start and things, I think that's why really they're just simply better dons ahead of you. If their form was on the floor, which it kind of was in December, then the conversation says, why don't you give them an opportunity? And that is right. And I'm not saying Mikel Arteta rates or doesn't rate, but there's got to be something in the Premier League where you need to get 3 points, live to fight another day. The manager's life in the footballing sense is on the line. Why is he playing the same players? They're the players he quote unquote trusts or he believes can implement his game plan better than Reece Nelson. But where are you at with Reece? I'm sure you love him as well. He's A-lender.
Yeah. I think I do love him for sure, but it's a matter of also availability is the best ability, and he's not been available a lot of times in the season. Not just this year, but in his past. And I think if he actually got to Mikel Arteta's first home game as a manager, he started Reece Nelson. So
he was the guy, yeah. Nelson was his pet project first. Yeah.
He started him first, but then he got injured. So if you can't stay fit and other players come in ahead of you and they start learning Mikel Arteta's way and have more experience in that, he's going to turn to them more often.
There you have it, man. Who has the best outro and intro? I'll give that to Babs, man. He's the editor done, man. He does that stuff, man. You know, you need to teach me how to do it. You're getting it. I can't claim credit, man. I'm just paying people to do that, man. I'm just trying, man. I'm like Sheffield United. I'm just trying to stay in the Prem, bro. I'm just trying
No. Come on, man. You're higher up the table, man.
You know what? I'll go for a humble. You know what? We're Aston Villa. We're just maintaining, man.
Ask the comments. This is the comment saying.
Yeah, answer comment. You lot answer really. I'm not involved, man. I'm humble, man. Bab's a serious editor as well as content creator. I wanted to pick your brains on a couple of things, man. Obviously, Ruben Neves came out and said, and for those, I don't know if Babs has heard, but for you lot in the comments as well, Ruben Neves, I was close to 3 clubs and it didn't happen, which saddened me and helped me make the decision to go to Al Hilal. I didn't want to put names forward, but Barcelona was one of the hottest, and it wasn't a lie. It was close to happening, just like with Arsenal. Now, I'm not going to lie, Babs. I hear it, Jorginho's doing his thing, Partey's a quality player, Declan Rice is great, Odegaard can play there, Vieira can play there, but I would have loved to have had Ruben. I'm not saying he's the best player in the world, but if we had him in it as an option, I think I would have loved that, man. Where are you at with that? And also, why do you think that didn't happen?
I think it comes down to price. So that type of player Jorginho is similar to Neves. I think they're actually very similar because they're not really physically gifted, but they're very good on the ball. How much do you pay for that? Do you pay what would have cost 40, 50 million pounds, which I don't think he's worth, or you pay the 12 million pounds to Jorginho? Would you get the same player but a bit more experience? And I think also went for a more sensible approach. So Neves is a player that we would have liked, but he's not the, as you said, Mikel prefers players with power. He talks about domination and not letting people breathe. Neves is not a player like Jorginho that can make players be physically outmuscled. I think Mikel Arteta's ideal vision is to have that invincible type of team where you got Vieira, who's just amazing on the ball, but also powerful off the ball. So it's like, that's where you got Declan Rice, who's got that same power off the ball.
Physicality required, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think Neves he falls in that Jorginho category, then it falls down to how much you're willing to pay for it.
And you said it there, man. The next thing I wanted to ask you about, Rio Ferdinand, man. And again, I'm reading it out for anyone who hasn't heard this. Mikel Arteta would leave Arsenal to join Arsenal 100%, said Rio Ferdinand. No one is saying it's happening, but if Man United in a wild dream said, do you know what, Eric Ten Hag, thank you, or Eric Ten Hag has been poached by Bayern Munich and he goes there, and then Manchester United say top of the list is Mikel Arteta. Arteta is going in and saying to the lads, listen, guys, it's been emotional, but I've got to move. I've got to go. I've offered my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on that. I think Rio Ferdinand is taking serious hard drugs, but maybe you agree or disagree, or maybe I'm tweaking. I don't know. What do you think of that?
What it is with Rio is that, and some tell us the most Man United fans, they're the same characters. I'm not trying to obviously say they're all the same person, but the same characters. They have the same dementia, bro. We're not living in 2013 anymore. It's 2024. Check the calendar. And check the numbers. It's 2024.
Man. Coming from Deluded himself, bro.
100%. And I think it's the arrogance United fans have. Because they feel like we are still into it. It's the arrogance. And I think that's why when they lose games and they go, why are fans onto us the most? Because you're arrogant like this.
Every player is the best player since sliced bread.
Your people's, and this is, by the way, an ex-player, an ex-legend, by the way. We ain't talking about a player off the street who's in the pub right now. We're talking about Rio Ferdinand.
Rio Ferdinand. You played against Messi and all these things and you're saying garbage.
Exactly. So, and he was being full on serious. And that's why, listen, I can't take it seriously, so I just have to think that maybe it's a dementia thing or something. I don't know, man. It's just something's happening.
I'm gonna be nice to Rio and say, you know what, you're doing that. You've got a YouTube channel. You're doing the crazy thing for engagement because you can't be like this. Don't get twisted, Man United.
You don't need to. I don't need to anymore. I'm sorry.
That's the only way I can rationalize it, Babs.
No,
because
you don't.
Why would you fix up your chest to come and say this? It don't make no sense. Man United is a massive club, big club. Obviously, their owners, their new owners, potentially. I don't know what's happening there. It does not make sense. Arteta has, and I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but Arteta has just gone through, the Ozils, the Pepes, replacing Xhaka, Tierney, and Ramsdale being eclipsed, back-to-back 8th, getting back in the Champions League, different style of football, implementing styles of football, finally getting an 11/20-odd man squad that can do what he requires. And it's finally looking like to the fans internally what the club wanted. Why the hell would he want to join Man United where he has to start again, where there's several key players that need to go and the work here isn't done? If he left tomorrow, we're in a great position, definitely under Arteta. But what is his legacy? He hasn't accomplished what he wants to accomplish. So it don't make sense for me. But Rio, I would say the biggest testament is half the time that lot don't rate our players, don't rate our manager, and now you're twerking for him. It's crazy. They compared Jadon Sancho and Anthony to Saka. Where are they? Where is Saka? And what do you even think of Rio saying Saka's not world class as well?
Yeah, again, it's just hypocritical, isn't it? Because he'll put players in that conversation that aren't. And I think a lot of it comes down to, I think United fans almost classify us as very similar to Arsenal fans, where in the sense of we've gone through these long-term managers, Fergie and Wenger, similar eras, long-term managers, both obviously left now, we've struggled to replace them. I don't think United fans grasp the fact that we've replaced our manager sooner than they have. I think that's what it is. They always thought we're in the same boat of we're both going to have these up years and down years, but Arsenal are kind of back now. we're sustainable, we've got top players that are young, that are still thriving, a manager that's obviously getting there as well. And I think they thought they were in the same boat with Ten Hag. Now they're realizing that it's not the case anymore, and then they're going, okay, we got to bring Arsenal down as well. But listen, lads, mind the gap, because it's quite a big one right now.
Errors come to an end. He was talking about his own, man. It does not make sense, like really and truly. People would even put in Ten Hag above Mikel Arteta. Like one of the comments I put on screen, the very fact that we are talking about Kai Havertz now to how we're talking in August, again, the jury's still out, just shows you Mikel Arteta is a mad scientist. There's a method to the madness. I'll always praise and critique where I see fairly, but I also think sometimes you've got to wait for a case study. And I'm not saying Kai Havertz is deciding the season, etc. I'm just saying there's levels. It doesn't make sense. But Rio was the same one to say they were getting Saudi money. What nation has been bought that club? I don't know. Again, this is why I think he says stuff for engagement and whatnot. Not that he needs it, as you said. Yeah. He's crazy, man. He's crazy. It's
crazy, yeah, because it's Rio Ferdinand here. We're not talking about some new guy starting TikTok tomorrow. Rio Ferdinand doesn't say crazy stuff. It just don't make sense.
He's making no sense. Matthew Boss has a question. I think this is a good one because it's completely left of the conversation. Vinicius, Saka, and Foden. Who starts bench and sell? Me. I'm gonna say Vinicius starts. I can't snake Saka, so you're on the bench. Foden's a lovely player, and it could be several denominations of this trio, but you're gonna have to go Foden, man.
Yeah. Listen, I've done this before on the Cannon podcast, and I've said Saka starts because I'm an Arsenal fan and I'm biased and I'm deluded. Of course I am, but I'll stick with Saka up front. I'll start Saka instead because I've seen him play and carry our team to next levels, from top 4 battles to title battles now. Obviously, right now, I get why people say obviously Vinicius, but he's in a better side with better players around him initially in a better environment. And also, how good would Vinicius be in the Premier League? Because I'm telling you, a lot of these players that do well in La Liga, Casemiro, Varane, very highly rated, come to the Premier League and then fans start seeing them more weekly and they go, hang on, he's not as perfect as I thought he was. So, look, Vinicius, for me, I can see why he starts, but I'm going to start the Arsenal lad because I'm an Arsenal fan.
Exactly. I can't lie. I think Vinicius is one of my favorite players. I think he'll bang anywhere. I think Varane and Casemiro, I do think the system at Real Madrid helped them. They've got no system, a bit like when we signed Ozil. You can't just sign players and think they're making anything. And them players, by their own standards, are past the hill. And to keep the Rio Ferdinand slander, he said Doku over Saka. And that's what United fans are at. If you look like a Tekken fighter or a Street Fighter and you're doing a million skills and not being effective, that's enough to rate people over Saka. But it doesn't matter if it's Anthony, Kulusevski, Jadon Sancho, Hudson-Odoi. There's many peasants that Cole Palmer, who's a great footballer, but there's been many people compared to Saka and they've all failed. I'm not saying Saka none of them can be better, but keep comparing. My star boy is going to keep doing what he's doing on the football field, man. On that as well, bro, like how many world-class players and which world-class players do you think are at Arsenal? I must admit, Arsene Wenger said Saka is world-class, so I've changed my tune. Yeah. That's my guy. He's world-class. I think I would throw Saliba in there, if anything. I'd throw Odegaard, if anything. I'd throw Declan Rice. I might be tempted to throw Big Gabriel as well. But where are you at with that?
I always look at it in terms of which of our players will start for who would you say is the best team in the world right now? Man City, Real Madrid, whoever it is. And I think the 3 players that stand out to me is William Saliba, Declan Rice, and Bukayo Saka. I think those 3 players start for most teams in the world. And they're in the squad if not. So I think if we're talking world-class players, those are the 3 players. I'm like, these guys are sustainable, they're reliable, always available. So yeah, I go with those 3 players world-class. Odegaard's not far off, and I think if he can continue his current role of playing as more of a midfielder than an attacker and at number 10, then I think he's got potential as well.
I mean, this question has said, don't please big up Diallo because another one who's part of the furniture here. Please don't crucify me for looking too far ahead. What result are we backing between Liverpool and City at Anfield? Me, I would say draw. I am a bit I know Liverpool are top of the tops, but I need City to lose. So if anyone had to win, I would say Liverpool have to win that for us to have a chance, but a draw would be perfect. What are you saying?
Yeah, I definitely think a draw as well. But also, I'd say, in terms of Liverpool, as great as they are, if there's one team that's more like to drop points in a random game, it's Liverpool than Man City are. Because City will go and win those games. So it's in these big games where they've lost to Arsenal this season, they've drawn against Liverpool. If they can lose or draw,
and they draw Chelsea as well. On my line.
There you go. So they did. In those big games, I think they've got 2 points out of possible 6 against Chelsea. So there's big games they're struggling with. So if we can, get a draw there again, drop some more points where both teams kind of stay for a sec, and we win our games, then we close the gap.
Do you think that City are suffering post-treble hangover then?
I don't think it's a post-treble hangover. I think it's also that other teams have gotten better. Like Liverpool are better than last year, and Arsenal are a lot better than last year in terms of the squad depth, in terms of struggling without injuries or
being a bit ugly as well.
Exactly, and the experience as well. You know, these players now know in these moments of season what's coming. They know that in April there will be some stressful moments. But I don't want to see team talks. I want to see you, stay stoic on the pitch, less emotional. And we're not seeing that as much. When you lose a game against Porto, I know the fans were going a bit crazy, but look at how the players responded.
Even the
4-1
gaffer
against Newcastle, the gaffer as well, and the interviews after the game, they're not as emotional. There's not blaming people out and calling people out. It's going, look, is what it is. Not our day today. We'll go again next.
And you're bang on the money, man. Continuing the theme, because I asked about City, this question also is kind of on it. Do you think Liverpool are sustainable with the amount of injuries they're grabbing recently, especially with the next 5 games? They're playing all the kids. They have a game, I think, today, actually, maybe Wednesday. Yeah. That's one thing. I don't wish injuries, but I hope there is a bit of a knock-on effect there. But where are you at?
I feel like they'll go through the initial hype because they've just won a trophy. They'll get a few more results, but at one point it will catch them out. Because there will be a game where you need the experience to just turn up for a sec. Because Liverpool aren't a team where they're so reliant on the systems. It's very much individual based at times. And if those individuals aren't available, then it becomes a matter of can these youngsters do it for the first time ever? And if they do, fair enough. But I think if those players can't return fit, Trent, Salah, these are difference makers. If you don't have your difference makers, then who's going to be?
And they just picked up one with Gravenberch as well. And, as an Arsenal fan, we've got nothing but sympathy for them. So I guess my last question for you would be, 2 last questions. I'll just see someone ask a question. My last question for you would be, if we don't win the Premier League champs, now, being devil's advocate, me and it's more deeper than just sacking a manager. But where would you be with Mikel Arteta? Because some people would say, if you've got all these players that are highly rated, if the manager's so innovative and doing all these things, if he's, got you, fighting for the league twice, if you're saying trust the process, at what point does the process correlate to winning trophies? So if we don't win a Premier or champs, considering we've gone out the league in the FA Cup, where are we at with Arteta? Is next year where it's not exactly you have to sell it, it's sack him if he doesn't, but is that next year the one where, if you don't bring the trophy home, proper question marks now?
100%. But if this season, I'm giving him new contracts, because have you seen the way we're playing right now? Have you seen the way
in my opinion? I think exactly.
If Arsenal fans just look at our performances, forget City and Liverpool for a second, the way we're improving year by year by year, and the completeness of the team, and how we're getting more and more experience, and how the players are growing tactically as well, that's improvement every single year, and that's what you can ask for at times. And if City win the league title because they've got Haaland and De Bruyne, and we don't, that's not Mikel Arteta's fault. But obviously if we get to the position where we're 5 points clear at the end of the season, we bottle it, then of course I can look at Mikel Arteta, but we're not there right now. We're winning every single game and we're still third. So we've got 2 top sides here, and also let's not forget about it. We're talking about Klopp and Pep Guardiola being 2 of the greatest managers the league's ever seen. If Mikel Arteta wins a title against those guys, that's something special. Right, isn't it? He's done very much all right. And if he doesn't win a title against those guys, they're top 5 managers of all time. It ain't no one-off managers like Claudio Ranieri, with all due respect. This is Klopp and Pep Guardiola.
And I think if we don't win the league, then I think like with last season, there has to be an internal diagnosis as to why we didn't win it. Where did we drop points? Can we be more flexible tactically? Can we have more quality, or maybe not even necessarily quality, durable players, which we have less durable players than we have them. Like we could count on one hand guys that you'd expect to be fit for at least 30, 32, 34, 35 even of the 38 games. My last question before I let you get out of here, bro. What was Edu and Arteta cooking with that cheeky Douglas Luiz bid in Jan? I don't know if we bidded in January for Douglas Luiz, but it would be nice if one does wonder where, if we had Douglas Luiz or Caicedo, I know Caicedo's crap at Chelsea, but if we had another midfield option, especially Douglas Luiz, how much better would we be? But where are you at with that?
Yeah, I think I won't be surprised if we revisit it in the summer. I know we always talk about Zubimendi and players like that, but I think Luiz has probably got obviously more league experience, but also I've seen him score quite a few goals this year. He scored 2 in the last game for Villa. So
he plays at 8 and a 6.
Exactly. So for me, I would favour Luiz over Zubimendi. But if Mikel Arteta sees more in Luiz, then he'll go for Zubimendi. But I like Luiz quite a lot, and I think it's more on the ball. But of course, for Mikel Arteta, massively, it's off the ball as well. And if he's not as intense, then he'll go for the players greater off the ball.
It's a weird one, man, because, half the names that we're linked with will probably sign a midfielder that hasn't been linked with us, as we've seen. But
100%.
I would say there must be some credibility in, Ruben Neves could come back to Europe, but he was probably one that you could say Arsenal would try and do a deal if there was one to be done. And I would say, you look at Onana now, you look at Zubimendi, you look at Douglas Luiz. It seems like they're the ones that if Arsenal aren't going to move for them, then fair enough, but they might have something. Now, out of all of them, I like Onana, but I would say no. I think Douglas Luiz being Brazilian, the fact that we tried to get him before, Premier League proven, depends on how willing Aston Villa are to deal with us, but he'd be there. I'm a big fan of Zubimendi. I don't think he's the Messiah and all of that jazz, but yeah, man, I think I'd go with that. I just want, you know, if you can sign Douglas Luiz, that's great because you can play as an 8 or a 6. I want next season, bro, when we're sitting here in 2025 on your channel or mine and we're talking about things, the only time I want to talk about midfield is if there's been a madness and there's crazy injuries. I don't want to speak about midfield because as much as I like Arteta and I think there's adaptable stuff, Edu and Arteta, you were midfielders in it. So this should be an area that should be addressed. And I think every Arsenal fan would say 2 players as a minimum, a striker and a midfielder. If we can get a winger, great. And anything else, I'm all for it, man. You know, what before I let you get out of it then, just because I actually don't know, is there, you know, I just said winger, striker, centre, midfielder. Probably need to look for a backup goalie for Ramsdale. Is there any other areas or utility man or something that you would like at the carpet?
It's weird because I'd say a right winger, but you talk about if we sign a striker, then Gabriel Jesus becomes that right winger option.
Yeah.
So
Save
we're
money
not
as well.
far off. We're not far off, and that's the best thing is we're not talking about 10 players. We're talking about 2, 3, 4 max. And that will always be the case. If next year we're not starting off amazingly, your fans will go sign that player instead. Fans will always want a new player. City fans they want to treble. They want to do exactly. Fans just want new signings. I get it. But for myself, looking at a team, I'm looking at first things first. What we don't have, and for me, is that left number 8. That's more like Xhaka, you know. But then again, you can see Rice could play that. So I'm saying more striker. You get that striker in first. That can give us that outlet, give us that Haaland type of outlet as well, and it's a bit more clinical than Havertz, and you know we're cooking.
I'd say, you know what? I know I keep saying last question, but what's a hot take for next season for you? Could it be Zinchenko gone, Jesus gone, Saka dropped? I don't know. Like, what would be a hot take for you?
I don't think there's many hot takes to be fair in terms of.
We just want one. That's
surprised. I think I wouldn't be surprised if one of those first team squad players were to be sold. You know, maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think. Jesus will be too soon. Zinchenko, I think, unless he's not starting at all, and you've got Timber available, Kivior available as well, and Tomiyasu, so it might be one of those ones. I'm trying to think what would be a thing. It's difficult because right now a lot of players are comfortable in that first team, but I would say don't be surprised if we do sign a new goalkeeper. If there's one that's like an Alisson on the market, we go for one of those because Raya is a very good goalkeeper.
Another goalie thing. Mad
yeah,
thing. Listen,
man. Maybe that's the thing, but look, maybe I'm trying to guess. I'm trying to force it at this point. So I don't know. Maybe actually left winger. If Martinelli's form doesn't pick up, we went for Mudryk for a reason.
I was just about to say, just about to say, as much as I like Martinelli, I think I see a reality where you're going to get games and all of that jazz. Yeah. But I would say you sign a striker, Jesus plays more consistently on the left-hand side, but it's a hot take, bro. So
no, I won't be surprised actually because I think there's a reason why Mikel will take him off first. And he's a very good player, by the way, but it's a reason why. And unless he addresses that, you might see that. Why do you think you wanted to sign Mudryk for £80 million to play?
That's what I said earlier. Why do you think he was going for a Rafinha who's more on the right-hand side of Pedro Neto, showing he could play both, or Mudryk? We're earmarking that, really. And I think Martinelli, you know, when his form was like last season, and I think he should play a lot, but I think he falls into that first team, regular first name on the team sheet, rotational kind of option kind of guy.
Just lower below.
A bit like Trossard. I don't think you can play like that if you make your form, but I don't think you're as integral at this moment in time as a Saka, as a Saliba and Gabriel, as a Odegaard, as a Declan Rice, even as Zinchenko for all his faults defensively. So we'd have to see, man. My last question for you would be then, like, let people know where they can find you. What content have you got to come out? I know you released one, I think yesterday, because I watched it actually.
Yeah, released the content yesterday. It was a bit later, but as I said, I was out on Sunday or Saturday, so I had to recover and make a video after that. But yeah, listen, content coming out this week. It'll be difficult though because there's no games, but I'm sure I'll find something to waffle about and make it work.
There you have it, people. I can't imagine you're not following Babs or subscribed to Babs, but if you aren't and you're being lazy, click the title. His YouTube channel's there. Smash it up. He's rapidly closing in 200k. You're flirting with almost 200k.
Yeah, trying to get them, but we were flirting for a while, trying to close the deal now.
Exactly, man. He's trying to go back to Travelodge, man. So get that done for him, people. So yeah, me and him have talked about a lot. Make sure you're hitting the like button, you're subscribing, you're commenting after the video's done, and you let us know your thoughts. On that note, though, we're out, people. What more can I say, man? Hopefully next time we do this, fun times continue. Peace.
I think it's like